In America, calling an ambulance isn't a medical 911. It's a financial suicide note, and I honestly don't know when the last time was that I actually felt free. Even though every morning I wake up to my neighbor's stars and stripes flag that they somehow still wash with expensive detergent just so it can shine under the crushing pressure of a 30-year mortgage, I wake up at 6 a.m. to an alarm that sounds more annoying than a police siren in downtown LA and immediately check my phone not to say hi to my family, but to see credit card notifications with interest rates that show off more wealth than a tech CEO in a tax scandal. I walk to the kitchen to make coffee using an automatic machine that costs as much as a plane ticket to Bali, just so I can stay awake long enough to stare at a screen for 8 hours to collect these points they call a salary, which for some reason disappears by the 15th, even though I only buy essentials like a Netflix subscription I never watch and bank fees. Just to keep my balance from hitting zero. This is life in the United States, where if you don't have premium health insurance, you're just one twisted ankle away from total bankruptcy. I have a friend who had an appendectomy, and now they're working night shifts at 3 different places just to pay off the interest, let alone the principal debt, which will probably be cleared right about the time they become a fossil. And don't even get me started on the food, because here we eat trash beautifully, packaged in recyclable wrappers that spike your cholesterol as high as the rent for a New York apartment. I go to a drive-thru and the cashier asks how much I want to tip, even though they just handed me a paper bag through a window. But if I don't hit that 20% button, I feel like a criminal robbing their future grandchildren's inheritance, even though their boss is the one who's supposed to pay their wage, not me. But hey, that's the tipping culture forced into a moral standard. Then let's talk about the education system, where we tell 18-year-olds to sign their lives away for a $100,000 loan so they can get a degree in a field that will be replaced by an AI bot. Before they even graduate, we have kids graduating with the debt of a small nation and the job prospects of a medieval peasant working at a desk for 40 years just to pay back the bank that funded their future. And then we wonder why everyone is depressed and hooked on prescription pills that the TV tells us we need every 5 minutes during the commercial breaks. Have you noticed that half of our television is just pharmaceutical ads telling us that if we feel sad, we should take a pill that might cause liver failure or sudden urges to jump off a bridge? It's a beautiful cycle. They make us sick with the food, then they make us broke with the medicine, and then they charge us for the therapy to talk about how broke and sick we are, and while we're busy dying of stress, the tech giants are harvesting our data like it's the new gold rush. They know what I want to buy before I even know I'm hungry. They know my political leanings better than my own mother. And they use that info to keep me in a loop of outrage, because outrage sells ads and ads pay for the private jets of people who don't even know what a gallon of milk costs anymore. We have billionaires racing to space in giant metal phalluses while our bridges are literally falling into the rivers, and people in Flint still don't have clean water to drink. But hey, at least we have 50 different brands of bottled water that all taste like plastic. And regret, we live in a country where you can buy a semi-automatic rifle at a sporting goods store easier than you can buy a box of pseudoephedrine for your cold, because God forbid you make some meth while you're out shooting at paper targets. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife, but don't use a knife because the police might see it as a lethal weapon and act accordingly. Our legal system is a pay-to-win game where justice is just a commodity for those who can afford a lawyer with a $500 hourly rate. If you're poor, you get a public defender who hasn't slept since 2019, and if you're rich, you get a misunderstanding and a slap on the wrist. We preach about human rights to the rest of the world while we have the highest incarceration rate on the planet, turning our citizens into literal slave labor for private prison corporations that trade on the stock market. Imagine that your freedom being a line graph on a Wall Street terminal. And then there's the housing market, which is just a giant game of musical chairs, but the chairs are made of gold, and the music is a funeral march for the middle class. You need a 6-figure income to rent a studio apartment that smells like wet dog and broken dreams, and the landlord has the audacity to ask for your firstborn child as a security deposit. We're a nation of nomads living in vans and calling it a lifestyle choice, because we literally can't afford a roof over our heads, while overseas investors buy up whole neighborhoods just to leave them empty as tax havens. It's a ghost town economy where the only things growing are the wealth gap and the suicide rate. But we're told to stay positive and manifest our reality like a TikTok influencer who lives in their parents' basement. We're obsessed with identity because we've lost our community. We fight over pronouns and statues while the planet is literally melting, and our social fabric is tearing at the seams. We spend hours scrolling through the highlight reels of strangers feeling inadequate because we don't have six-pack abs or a yacht in the Mediterranean, forgetting that the person in the photo is just as miserable as we are. They're just better at lighting. We've replaced real human connection with digital validation, seeking likes from people we wouldn't even stop to help if their car broke down on the side of the road. And let's talk about the news, which is just professional wrestling for people who think they're smart. It's not about information anymore. It's about confirming your bias and making you hate your neighbor because they watch a different channel. We're being divided and conquered by people who are laughing all the way to the bank while we scream at each other over things that won't matter in 10 years. We have the technology to solve almost every problem we face, but we use it to make better algorithms to sell us more junk. We don't need to impress people. We don't like using money we don't have. It's the ultimate circus, and we're the clowns, except we have to pay for our own makeup and costumes. And if we fall off the tightrope, there's no safety net, just a concrete floor of poverty waiting to swallow us whole. But God bless America, right? Because at least we have 30 different types of cereal to choose from while the world burns around us, and we keep voting for the same two parties that have been selling us out since the 80s. Expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. But here we are, the most insane and heavily armed asylum in history, pretending everything is fine while we wait for the next update on our phones that tells us what to be angry about next. And after all, that we still go to work on Monday and smile at the boss who would replace us with a literal toaster if it saved him 5 cents an hour, because we're terrified of losing our lifestyle, which consists of sitting in traffic and watching TV until we die of a stress-induced heart attack at 65, just as we finally qualify for Social Security that probably won't even exist by the time we get there. So, yeah, happy Monday, everyone. Don't forget to tip your server, because their survival depends on your pity, not their employer's budget. And make sure to smile for the security cameras, because your data is our most valuable export, and we wouldn't want the shareholders to see a frown in the land of the free and the home of the brave.